What's up, everybody? Welcome to the 3 and Out YouTube page. I'm John Middlekauff, and we are talking football all day, every day. Make sure you subscribe, like the video, share it with your friends. Let's roll, baby. Okay, mailbag time. At John Middlekauff, Instagram, fire in those DMs. Get your question answered here on the show. Start with Taylor. With your experience inside the building, how big of an impact does the media coverage of players influence the team's decision-making? Personally, I feel the media fawning over every quarterback each year and labeling everyone ... the next is having a negative impact on the league. Teams don't feel like they're building a complementary roster, just searching for a savior. I mean, I think everyone's been looking for quarterbacks forever. At the end of the day, I would say most quote-unquote narratives, obviously the hype machine in the offseason is real. I think media coverage and mock drafts and that type of stuff have a bigger impact in the offseason than they do in the regular season. Like Bryce Young got benched because he was playing terrible, not because people were, writing articles or podcasting about him, right? The season speaks for itself because the eye in the sky doesn't lie. But I do think in the offseason it can have a bigger impact. Like you say, the media creation of who you need to sign, who you shouldn't sign. But I would say the good teams are completely unfazed by that. Love the pod. Big time Bengals fan. How as an organization can a team turn around scouting, improve draft selection, and gauge performance of your scouts? I look at the Bengals draft classes since Burrow entered the league. Outside of the obvious choice in 21 with Chase, he wasn't the obvious choice. They could have taken Penei Sewell, but I know what you mean. They were, whoever they picked there was going to be good. You can't find a single player that is high level. Anemic pass rush, an O-line and D-line entirely built through free agency, and a secondary that can't even cover an O-lineman streaking out as a wide receiver. How do teams decide who screwed up the draft process? The GM gets fired, the scouts rotate like mercenaries to other teams. That's the hard part about this business is it's much more do I like you or do I not like you based on how well you are as an evaluator. Clearly, like in any industry, certain people are much better than others. But their owner plays such a huge role during the draft. So if he likes an individual scout, he's not going to fire that guy. And you might have a guy who's good at his job that the owner likes or doesn't like, and he gets fired. So how good you are as a scout is not like as a coach or definitely as a player, where if you play well, they're not going to get rid of you. And if they do, someone else is going to be willing to pay you. If you're a coach and you do a good job with your unit, it's going to be clear. Obviously, as a coordinator, if you're doing a good job, it speaks for itself. It's hard to quantify the scouts. It really is. And that's where I would say scouting is much more like corporate America. Do they like you? Do they want you around? Your performance isn't as important as long as you're trying and you're decent. But like most industries, I mean, there are a ton of scouts who probably aren't that good. And there are a ton that are probably pretty good that maybe their personalities don't mesh. They don't get elevated. So I don't know what to tell you beside your owner plays such a big role that there's not much like he's in control. He's just a less, I would say, outspoken Jerry Jones in terms of his role with building your team. I do have been watching the show for a couple of years, quickly become a fan. I do have one gripe. I think everyone needs to slow down on Anthony Richardson. He's 22 with only 7 NFL starts. Though he looked way more polished at the start of last year, he's now coming off shoulder surgery on his throwing arm. Coach Steichen is also leaving the playbook open, and I love that because he needs to learn how to navigate through some adversity. He's making the first reads, aside from the end zone pick against the Bears. And in time, I think he will be fine. I want to go into way more detail, but I have to keep it somewhat short. No one's arguing that he's not a really good kid. Like you said, he's young. His physical attributes jump off the television screen. And it's fair to say the shoulder injury is something to monitor. Now, the shoulder injury, different point in time in their career, happened to Cam Newton, and he never threw the same. Now, his arm strength was never the same. That's clearly not an issue with AR. I do just think it's fair. Like, when you watch him play through these first 3 weeks, beside a couple throws, it's been mostly really, really bad. That doesn't mean his career's over. It doesn't mean he's going to get benched. But I think two things can be true. You're obviously going to keep working with him. Like, this guy's getting a couple years to them just work through it. But history would say most of those guys don't work. First off, I never miss an episode. So as a Colts fan, I've argued that you can teach accuracy. Richardson makes the right read, and his pocket presence is there. There are traits I think that those are traits I think are unteachable. Here's the thing. He ain't scared. And he doesn't, you're right. He's not like fluttery in the pocket in terms of he doesn't feel scared. It's just the ball, when it leaves his hands, is not getting remotely close. Josh Allen's first season was 12 games, 10 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. So based on that, AR is fixable considering what we've seen this before. I do think whenever you compare yourself to the best case scenario, you're letting yourself, you're giving yourself the opportunity to be let down. I think trying to make him the next Josh Allen, we might not see another Josh Allen for years. To me, like, can you just become Cam Newton, who was never very accurate, but was obviously a really good player? If he becomes Cam Newton with Shane Steichen, you'd be in good shape. Trying to become Josh Allen, who's just, like 4 or 5 straight years now of just dominating. And listen, I know Cam Newton won an MVP that year, was clearly an outlier, but we're Josh Allen. You can just chalk every year. We're going to the playoffs. We're going to the playoffs. We're going to the playoffs. The difference is if he becomes Cam Newton, think how much better Cam Newton would have been with Shane Steichen than he was with Ron Rivera, who was a defensive head coach. I'm getting a lot of Anthony Richardsons. Someone asked, I don't know if I'm going to be able to find it, but if Travis Hunter, the question was, is it going to be possible for Travis Hunter to play both ways in the NFL like he's doing in college? And I think two things can be true. One, he's capable of playing both positions. He could be an NFL wide receiver or he could be an NFL DB. That's why he's going to go in the top 5 picks of the draft. No scout, no coach. No one's arguing that. He could play either position. Then the next question is, can he do it both? And I think it's kind of physically impossible. Because if we use Ohtani as an example, you only have to pitch every 5 days. So it's not like you do it all the time. Or when you play corner and wide receiver, you just never come off the field every single game. And you're getting tackled as a wide receiver / blocking. So there's a lot of wear and tear on you. And then the tackling that is asked of you at the NFL level, powerful running backs, tight ends, offensive linemen pulling out there. I just think it's too much on your body. Now, if he plays DB, could he play some wide receiver throughout the year? 100%. Could he play wide receiver and then if you had some injuries, help you out as a DB? For sure. I don't think it's realistic to go both ways in the NFL. 17 games, 100 plays a game. I just think it's borderline impossible to keep a guy healthy. I love touchdowns. Tutties, taking it to the house, in for 6. I call them tugs. Whenever you call a touchdown, one thing's for sure. Touchdowns matter more at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sportsbook partner of the NFL. On the ground, in the air, special teams or defense, we do not care how they score them. We want to bet on touchdowns. And DraftKings Sportsbook is delivering. Ready to place your first bet? Try betting on something as simple like picking a player to score a touchdown or how many touchdowns will be in a game. Go to DraftKings Sportsbook app and make your pick. Ready to do a touchdown dance on your own? New DraftKings customers bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Score big with DraftKings Sportsbook, the number one place to bet touchdowns. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now and use the code JOHN, J-O-H-N. That's code JOHN. New customers get $200 in bonus bets when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings. The crown is yours. Lifelong Chiefs fan. We know Andy is under contract through 2029. Hypothetically, if Andy were to hang it up earlier than 2029 and you were Clark Hunt, would you stay in-house to hire the replacement or look external? If in-house, would you prefer Nagy or Spags? It's a good question on Nagy and Spags. If I was Clark Hunt, here's what I would do. Brett Veach, part of the best part about being an owner in a good franchise, you're making so much money and you're paying Andy and Veach, let's say Andy makes 20 plus million, Veach makes 4 or 5. That's the easiest employees you'll ever pay in your entire life. Think how much money those two individuals with Mahomes are making you. So at this point in time, Veach has earned a ton of equity with the fan base, with the owner, with the players. Brett, do whatever you want to do. In you, I trust. So if Andy retires, if I'm Clark Hunt, I let Brett Veach hire whoever he wants to hire. Now remember this. Brett Veach played wide receiver in college at a little school called Delaware. His quarterback was a man named Matt Nagy. So I would imagine Matt Nagy would be their head coach. I also think if Andy were to retire, let's just say in the next couple of years, they would hire in-house. Is that the right move? Depends what your options are. But I think Brett Veach has earned the right to be the guy pulling the trigger. Oh, here was the question. Could Travis Hunter play both ways? I think realistically, it's just too much. Look how gassed, some wide receivers are after a couple routes when they're kind of tapping their head and they need to go out. They just need a blow. Obviously, as a corner, you don't rotate. You never come out. And now with teams running the ball so much, they got to tackle. I just don't think it's realistic to keep the guy healthy. Could he do it? He definitely could do it in individual games. Could he play 10 years of being a wide receiver and a corner every single play in every single game? I think it's physically impossible to avoid injury. I don't think it's possible. I think he's going to have to pick a position, and then he'll obviously still have the talents to do the other position if he ever, they need him to do stuff. I would recommend playing corner, but obviously the money wide receivers are making, which could we see a slowdown at that? Brandon Ayuk just got $30 million a year. Clearly it's not worth that. I was saying that forever. It's he's worth $24 million. It's the market. It's yeah, if you pay Brandon Ayuk $30 million, you're going to be let down. I think Justin Jefferson's a very rare player. As a Cowboys fan, should we trade Micah at the deadline and get picks? We need a running back and a wide receiver too bad. We resemble the Devontae Adams Las Vegas situation, except we are a defensive version with Micah. In the last 3 home games, we have given up 10 touchdowns on 11 drives in the first half of those games. No quarterback or offense can overcome that. Why not spend all your resources into getting a badass offense for Dak and going into shootouts with other teams if we have to? Because our defense is not capable of playing with teams who will go 21 personnel and pound the rock. It's not a perfect team building strategy, but it's much less flawed than what we've got right now. Like from a team building standpoint, if you could get 2 1s and a 2 from, or 2 1s and 2 2s for Micah Parsons, does that make sense? Yes. From overall philosophical standpoint, the entire point of drafting is to try to find a Micah Parsons, right? So you get rid of them, you're just going to try to draft another one. Now, like you said, well, this is our team right now. And having Micah Parsons on this team that cannot stop the run is kind of irrelevant because we're going to get down, they're going to control the clock, and it's going to neutralize his talents. So they won't. I don't see a snowball's chance in hell that Jerry would trade him. But I think you're kind of talking some sense because the team is not just flawed right now. It doesn't even make sense if they can't stop the run because that's all any team is going to do. I know when the Giants game happens, I'd put like Malik Neighbors at running back. Like, hey, Malik, you're going to play running back this game. I've been a Bengals fan my entire life. I'm 25 years old. It's been a rough ride. And it seems like there was finally hope for our franchise. We drafted a top quarterback, top wide receiver. However, it seems like our coaching staff and front office are holding us back. Taylor seems to be carried by the talent, especially in our Super Bowl run. His play calling is very bad at times. What are your thoughts on the Bengals coaching and ownership and what you think will happen with the franchise this year and going forward? Well, Mike Brown is never going to pay top money for a coach. So if you were to fire Zac Taylor, let's just say at the end of this year, you would hire another Zac Taylor. Now, maybe that guy's good, right? Maybe you hire Clint Kubiak or Bobby Slowick, assuming they would take the job, which would be hard not to if you got Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow. The problem with the Bengals is their owner, we just talked about this, is a lot like Jerry Jones, except he has way less money and is very, very involved with picking players. So it's not an easy job. But when you got a quarterback who's that good, it's pretty intriguing. I think I just saw a clip earlier today that after the game, I guess they got asked about this in the press conference, that Burrow and Zac Taylor, instead of going to the locker room, went right to Zac Taylor's like game day office and they talked before they went in the locker room. I mean, what could they be talking about? What's going on there? I don't know. I mean, Burrow, you I don't blame you, but like, you're not going anywhere. So maybe this is like, if Joe stops believing in Zac Taylor, Zac's done. Like, it's over. He will be fired immediately. So to me, the biggest question mark now is, does the quarterback believe in the coach? Because if he doesn't, then the Bengals will be open at the end of the year. Here's a good question for the pod. Is it against league rules to have radio communication in every player's helmets rather than just the quarterback or the middle linebacker? I was thinking, and especially on defense, it could allow cornerbacks to be communicated when the ball is in the air. Or if there's a play fake, players can be told from up top, leading to much faster play recognition. I was thinking this would be Jim Harbaugh style tactic. If you're not cheating, you're not trying. Well, if this was available, every team in the league would be doing this. You are allowed 2 green dots. Obviously, one on defense, which is typically your middle linebacker, and your quarterback. And so you get only one person, when your team is out there on the field, has communication. And that communication gets cut off with 15 seconds left in the play clock. So once the play's going on, there is no communication. But I like your ideas there. You're an idea guy. Big Cowboy fan. Is the defense or is it the players? Or is it the defensive coordinator? I think it's fair to say if you can't stop the run, that's a player issue. Your defensive tackles and your linebacker play is not good. It's pretty simple. And Mike is not a great run player. He's a pass rusher. who's an excellent pass rusher, who's a great athlete. But if you just have a good tackle, like they can block them. So your defensive tackles suck. Your best defensive player is not a big point of attack run stuffer. And your linebacking play is not very good. I mean, I look at Zimmer. He's had good defenses. They played well against the run. It's a personnel thing, which is a Jerry thing and a front office thing. It's also hard to change. Like, what are you supposed to do in October? Find 2 defensive tackles at home on the couch and just add them to your team? It's not realistic. Question for the pod. Monday night had 2 games, and I chose the Bengals and the Bills. Oh, and chose the Bengals and the Bills both at home. Hamlin is having a great season. Any chance the NFL planned this duo of home games to push the Damar Hamlin story to get some easy, positive publicity since he was carted off in Cincinnati? Great planning if so. Just curious if the NFL really is thinking about that when planning out the season. Well, I would never say never with the NFL. They're always into that, you know. But what positive publicity do they need? It wasn't their fault that he almost died on the field. And if anything, they got a lot of credit for their teams, their team personnel, the doctors, like everyone handled it as well as humanly possible. Now that he's starting, when the schedule came out, they don't know he's starting. So when they make the schedule in the offseason, Damar Hamlin is not anointed a starter. Bills fans, you can correct me on this, but pretty sure didn't he just win the job during training camp? Obviously, he would have had a chance to start once they let the 2 safeties go, but he wasn't it's not like Josh Allen, right? He's not Tyrann Mathieu, where you're like, he's going to be a starting safety. So I hear what you're saying. Not a crazy theory, but I don't get the logic behind a Monday Night Football doubleheader because you just put one Monday night game on. I would understand a little bit more if they just said, hey, one game kicks off at 3 and the other one kicks off at 5:30 or whatever, so it's just they're going independent of each other. Like, we're going to go 2 games on Monday night. Hell, one game starts at 3 and the other game starts at 6. So, Eastern time, one game starts at 6 and the other one starts at 9. One's more of an East Coast game. The other game's a West Coast game. Listen, I think it's kind of crazy, but I get it. I don't understand starting one at 4:30 Pacific and the other one at 5:15. So they're both going on simultaneously. Obviously, there's something there. There's some advantage that they view big picture financially to do that. I don't see it. I don't like it. But I don't think they're just random. They're clearly not randomly doing it. I think it's less about the matchup. Like, I don't think the Bengals and the Bills Hamlin thing, my guess is, had nothing to do with it. But I do think there's something that they see that clearly has not gone public yet for the reason for doing this, which maybe we'll find out one day, maybe we won't. But it's hard for me to comprehend the benefit of having 2 games going on at the same time on Monday Night Football. But clearly Raj and his crew see some benefit there.